Hello there. Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing? All right. So, welcome. Good morning, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening whenever you're watching this. My name is Josh, and welcome to my channel. On here, we talk news, politics, and current events. It is currently January 5th, 2023. Wrestle Kingdom was last night. It was very, very good. Yeah. Hope everyone out there is doing all right. So, a little bit of a controlled show today, as you might have seen in the description. I'm thinking we're going to go over some general news and a few other things. But I'm hoping that the big crux of this is going to be that I want to talk about Andrew Tate. Over the last, maybe week and a half, since Greta Thunberg went and got him clapped up by the Romanian government, there's been a lot of discourse, especially on the left, in terms of, I guess, how Andrew got to the point and where he was at, not just in his career, but I think re-examining and having a bit of a what's the word? An autopsy, if you will, on kind of the Tate movement and how the left has kind of failed in terms of, quite frankly, challenging him. Andrew Tate was incredibly popular, and to this day kind of seems to hold a good amount of that popularity. Obviously, his reach has been stunted due to factors such as, like I said, being arrested in Romania. But hey, I think it's still important as a incredibly small, but hopefully it doesn't stay that way, voice on the left here to kind of weigh in and go over that stuff. But first, before we get into that stuff, before we get into any of that, I want to cover some basic current events and normal news for a bit. So, yeah, let's just start out with, I think kind of what's been on people's mind. Let's stick with it. So, the House of Representatives has yet to vote in a Speaker of the House. Now, this is a bit embarrassing. I believe they went through their 10th election for Speaker earlier this afternoon, and Kevin McCarthy, the ostensibly leader of the Republicans in the House. Oh, hi, Misa. I figured you'd. Ostensibly the leader of the Republicans in the House has yet, after 10 elections, been able to secure the speakership. Normally, the Speaker of the House is the majority leader. That usually is how that works out. Is how that usually is that person. But due to about 20 members in the Republican caucus, it's looking less and less likely that McCarthy is going to be able to clinch the nomination and become, the new Speaker of the House. This has a lot of ramifications in terms of, committee seats and in terms of the internal Republican Party politics. But I want to take a look at a specific member. Yes, we have a guest in here who's probably going to make some noise. You might see him in the background. But I want to take a look at one of the holdouts, one of the more prominent holdouts in the Republican Party faction. FYI, your vocal audio is a bit low. It is? I'm always thinking to myself, am I too loud? Thank you. I'll turn that up a little bit. Hi, Misa. Hello again. So, I want to take a look at probably one of the more prominent members, which is going to be, to my unfortunate dismay to a good degree, that's going to be A1 Lauren Boebert, representative from Colorado. She showed up on I believe Hannity's show, to which he kind of pushed her a lot on what her what her demands are, what she wants out of this whole process. And understandably, she kind of she bristled at that, and both of them kind of went back and forth. But and I noticed a lot of people covered that. When I initially went to go look for the clips, I actually saw she showed up on the Michael Knowles show. Somebody in the little Daily Wire Boys faction that we actually haven't watched on here, and I haven't watched too much of Michael Knowles. So I'm sure Michael Knowles, I've seen a bit of it, okay amount of his content. He's a guy, but more or less he's going to be a little bit more favorable to Lauren Boebert's side. So I kind of want to see, when she's surrounded by, in an environment where she is with somebody who's like-minded, somebody who's going to not push back on her, but actually support her movement. Let's see if she kind of, loosens up a bit and lets some of her, let's see if we can glean any relevance from her. Yes? Hello. Any of her answers. So let's go.
Our friends over in the GOP might be able to figure out, the sort of people who have been in power in the GOP for a very long time might be able to figure out if they had an ounce of self-awareness, but they don't, so instead they're blaming Lauren Boebert. We have Lauren on the call. Lauren, thank you so much. I know you're very, very busy right now, but thank you for making time to come on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on, Michael.
So, Lauren, where does it all stand? We've given a recap of the speaker fight through
10 votes in, nobody.
Kevin McCarthy lost 3 rounds of voting 2 days ago. He loses 3 rounds of voting yesterday. You and those terrible, evil House Freedom Caucus.
I think that means he lost 4 more rounds today. So
you're not budging here. So what happens?
Well, let's begin at where it started. This started in the summer. We wanted to handle this privately and have a solution before January 3rd. These negotiations began in the summer, and they were dismissed because Kevin McCarthy thought he was going to have this massive red wave, and our votes did not matter. When he saw that the $300 million that he raised did not produce the red wave that he promised, he realized quickly he's going to need our votes. And so some concessions were put into play. It was very difficult to get them into play. It was difficult to get them approved with our rules process, the way Washington, D.C. operates and functions. We want to fundamentally change this town. It is broken. It is less popular with the American people than cockroaches. So we have to...
Okay, so off the bat, let's acknowledge here. Lauren Boebert is right. The way and the function, the way that the House functions and the way that the parties, more specifically, run each House is incredibly institutionalized. And is Boebert a vegan? No idea. Probably not, I would guess. But the thing that she's actually kind of right, and Matt Gaetz also has kind of been pushing for one of the some of the anti-corruption changes to the rules, along with a few small details and stuff like that. But either way, this is the part of this faction of the Republican Party that I would actually agree with. In terms of the way the parties in terms of the way the parties generally function and the way they run each house, it is incredibly difficult to have the actual members and of the House really be accountable to the will of the people to a degree, just because of the way committee seats work and kind of the internal palace politics that kind of happens. A lot of horse trading and a lot of if you want to get on a committee where as a good example, if you want like Katie Porter, who's really, really good at questioning and investigating financial institutions and kind of presenting that information in a hostile way to some of the people that she gets to call, Katie Porter might have to make some concessions. Katie Porter also doesn't have a lot of tenure in the House of Representatives, which is also a huge problem. A lot of our elected representatives in the House, their positions and their ability to influence the rest of the party and drive the narrative is based on tenure. So it's why you have people like Nancy Pelosi at the top of the Democratic Party, even though Nancy Pelosi is nowhere near, in terms of popularity, at least among the base, not a strong figure. Nancy Pelosi will, she's never losing her primaries. And I mean, she's not going to be around much longer, I suppose, but clearly they haven't been able to beat her in a general either. Mainly that's due to gerrymandering that the Democrats participate in, which Republicans do the exact same thing. But the point being, the way these parties are run, the way they're organized, is really is very internalized and very warded off to members like Lauren Boebert, like Matt Gaetz, who, by the way, Matt Gaetz doesn't take PAC money, which is a good thing, whereas Kevin McCarthy absolutely takes PAC money. So, I'm not a big fan of either guy, but, one is at least ostensibly fighting some form of corruption. The other one is quite frankly, a ghoul of Washington with a lot of power. So in that case, we need to give them this credit that they have an understanding that the system is broken and the way our bodies function is skewed against regular people, certainly.
Get something right here, and we cannot go along with the status quo. Well, on January 2nd, two of my fellow colleagues and myself, Matt Gaetz, Scott Perry, we walked into Leader McCarthy's office after whipping votes all day long and handed him 218 votes. Mm-hmm. We said, here it is. Let's seal the deal. Here's some common sense issues that you can put forward, some promises that you can make, single member motion to vacate. So there is accountability on the third in line to the presidency of the United States. You cannot demand more responsibility and follow Nancy Pelosi's precedents of less accountability. So this is
in terms of that is essentially them asking for the ability to vote out McCarthy, or at the very least hold a vote to boot McCarthy as speaker at any point, which would, I mean, in the sense, I'm not sure if it would ever actually happen, but you gotta know that McCarthy does not want his party at any point to be able to hold votes of no confidence and boot his ass. Like it's essentially like, sure, you can have the position, but we're gonna hang a blade over you for the entire time and give us the ability to choose when to drop that sword. So like, it's, as your power as speaker is also incredibly stunted, because you then can't leverage nearly as much, because you're now weakened to quite a significant degree. You just always have kind of a gun in the back of your head.
Our check and balance on the speaker, and that was a priority for me personally, certainly, and for many others. But then things like bring the Texas border plan to the floor for a vote, bring a term limits bill to the floor for a vote. Any member who wants to reduce spending.
First one, the first one, dumb and not really all that meaningful. Second one, actually kind of agree. Term limits would be good.
In an amendment, we'll make that amendment in order so we can bring it to the floor and have a vote. Earmarks, bring them to the floor individually for a vote. This is spending money that we do not have, so let's at least have a vote on it instead of packing it into a bill where we have no option to either swallow the whole thing or say no way. These are things that we presented to him.
And
he
some of those
solicited a list
reasonable
from us of committee assignments. All members provide committee assignment requests. We know where our talents and skills are best utilized, and we provided that list. Kevin McCarthy made a great argument saying, listen, the people in this group only want 2 committees. I need you spread out. I want you to have more influence. And we agreed with that. And we said, this is a time constraint on many of the members. It's a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure, but we're willing to take that sacrifice and have these committee assignments that bear more pressure. And so we provided that to him. And then January 2nd, when
now the committee assignments, actually really good asks. About 2 years ago, the squad and kind of squad adjacent folks were being pressured to do essentially what Lauren Boebert and her faction are doing now, for specifically a floor vote on Medicare for all, which would have failed. I think, especially now that we know, with a little bit of hindsight, and also it was kind of my assumption before, if you know you're going to lose that vote, not really worth it. It's not worth putting on a show for the American people for them to see something that's going to abjectly fail. What they're asking for, and what the squad I'm sure also asked for, were committee seats. Committee seats, very important, with an actual ability to affect legislation. Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to be on the investigatory boards, meaning, you know, she can do all of her Hunter Biden, dick looks as much as she wanted. That's kind of what she's signaled that she's looking forward to doing, is investigating Hunter Biden for, I don't know, having a big penis or something. I'm not sure. But committee seats, very useful, very reasonable asks for the most part. Again, they're not going to tell us kind of what's holding McCarthy up. I'm sure some of it could be, some unreasonable asks. But so far, other than the 2 or 3 things that, as a leftist, I'm not in favor of, nonsense border patrol money for bullshit, I'm not in favor of that. But if we're talking rules changes, if we're talking earmarks changes, earmarks are how bills that are about maybe just funding the government, you end up earmarking a million other things for your locality just to kind of score a few points with the voters in your local area. It's also a carrot and stick situation where it's something you can offer a congressman, a senator, whatever, for their vote, because at the end of the day, they want to win their seat again. So if you give them money to build a nicer bridge, they can go home to their district or their state and say, hey, I built us this nice bridge, I gotta secure this nice bridge, or whatever it might be. But yeah, and those inevitably increase the price of bills. It's how many little costs here and there ends up getting you to the really big spending package at the end of last year that everyone voted on.
The table, Kevin McCarthy laughed us out of the room, said that it was a selfish wish list, and would not take the deal. Well, now here we stand, Michael. I no longer have those 218 votes to provide to Kevin McCarthy. So it doesn't matter if I go to the floor today and vote for Kevin McCarthy, because there are now more than ever votes that he does not have to get to that speakership. This is very important to know. He walked out of that meeting and lied about what we requested. Trust is absolutely broken, if there was any to begin with. And this is a huge problem. We want unity in the Republican Party. And I believe now is the time to start seriously considering consensus candidates who will unify the Republican Party so we can get to work.
I do find it rich that she says consensus when she's got 20 people against the 100 or something, 200 votes that were secured. But at the end of the day, this is how you play politics. We also have to remember that what their ability to pass anything at this point, if they let McCarthy go through, guess what? The House can't pass anything. They can't. A Republican-held majority House can't pass anything, right? So whether McCarthy's sitting there or whether Trump's sitting there, who Gates actually, funnily enough, nominated, which I don't think anybody else got on board for that. But no matter who's in there, if the Republican Party holds a majority, there's almost no chance that they'll pass anything. So for McCarthy's side, for McCarthy, he wants to be speaker. He wants to, from a personal ambition standpoint, he wants to be speaker. He wants to do all the speaker stuff, right? But all of these guys know that if they hold up the entire process, nothing happens. They can't pass anything. McCarthy just loses and gets embarrassed and looks like a fool. So, I mean, at least from a personal play, this is really, really strong. They have nothing to lose. They're not holding up anything. The country's not You know, we're not at a time when it's like, hey, you need to do this to make sure that, you know, the country keeps functioning, or like a good example is like, we have a Republican held Senate now. We can pass like a federal abortion ban, right? But like, they don't hold a majority in the Senate, which means even if they wanted to pass that, even if Lauren Boebert wants to pass her like little border funding thing, it's never going to get past the Senate. So for them, there's no stakes. For McCarthy, all of the stakes are all right here. They're all right here in the heart. Every day he has to wake up, he has to go in there and be embarrassed by his own party and his party members who constantly say that he's not in charge. And there's nothing worse as a leader, especially in politics, than having a outright revolt against your leadership in the public. Like, McCarthy looks incredibly weak here, and this will follow him if he gets into the speakership. He's fucked in the long run. He's pretty fucked in the short term. So, I mean, I love to see it, but man.
Work for the American people.
This is really important context, I think, because what you're saying is, over the summer, Leader McCarthy just didn't think he needed you guys because there were supposed to be more Republicans in the House.
Liberty, I think also you have to figure eventually, because the way that the speaker vote works out, because the House speaker vote is a bit complicated in that it's not a vote of everybody in the House, right? The vote is counted and you need a majority of the voters in the House. Meaning, you know, the House is 436 members, I believe. Meaning, if 10 people didn't show up, right? If 10 people don't show up tomorrow, don't vote at all, the entire threshold comes down. So, like, you know, you figure some of these Republicans, you know, like Lauren Boebert and such, they could conceivably not vote or vote present or vote, you know, not vote essentially, which would lower the threshold for who needs how many votes to become speaker and pass it along to the Democrats. Hakeem Jeffries conceivably could be speaker if they were to lower that threshold, since Democrats are pulling all of their voters in. It's very, very, very unlikely, but they also have a smoking gun at this point to say, like, look, we will stand by our values and you'll pay the price by letting Democrats win. And then we'll fundraise and tell our voters and every voter we can that you let Democrats win with a minority. And that's embarrassing. He's like, and you know, you do the power play, you know, you play Russian roulette, but fuck, dude, man, it is good positioning. I mean, again, I gotta respect it.
And so he would be able to win the speakership without having your votes along. Because of what happened, that turned out to be a bad bet. And when you make bad bets, you got to pay the price for those bad bets. And you bring up this other point, which is trust. And I think this is really important because a lot of this debate has focused on how on the issues, Kevin McCarthy is relatively pretty good. You know, we come from a world of John Boehners, so I guess Kevin McCarthy is more conservative than John Boehner. But what you're saying is, no, it's really about trust. When we're talking about leadership elections, we need to be able to trust the leader. And what you're saying is you don't think that Leader McCarthy has proven himself trustworthy.
Correct. And that's why we wanted the tools implemented to where maybe we don't need to trust him because the individual member is empowered.
Is that JFK back here? That looks like JFK. Okay.
Enough to get the job done and is not ruled by a dictator as speaker. This is not a kingdom that we live in. We don't anoint a king. I believe that this is how our founding fathers intended this process to work. Our vote is there to be debated, not just rubber stamped and cast to the biggest fundraiser. But you cannot have...
Not wrong. Although usually the speaker is whoever's the biggest fundraiser, mainly because they fundraise to then divvy up those funds to each House member, which then they turn in for their loyalty and votes.
Good faith negotiations where trust is absent. And so that's why motion to vacate was so important to me, because that is the check and balance on this position. If you break trust, if you don't do what you promised, well, buddy, you're out of there. And he has already shown he's not willing to do that. I still have not seen a public announcement of a single member motion to vacate. He's lying to the American
Lauren, for those listening who don't know what that is, what is a motion to vacate?
a motion to vacate gives us the opportunity to remove the speaker and have another vote for speaker if necessary. This is something that does not get used, but it's available. This is something Thomas Jefferson wrote and has been in effect for nearly 2 centuries. And Nancy Pelosi was the first speaker in history to modify that. She removed that individual empowerment from the member and said, you no longer have a say in this. I get to rule how I want.
Now, I'm not super familiar with the history of rules changes, but rules changes have happened through, I mean, they happened through voting. Like, House members had to vote to get rid of that ability. But again, when we kind of fast forward to modern day politics, what drives most modern politics is money, is fundraising. So, you know, when your top fundraiser is like, hey, you're going to vote for me for speaker, or you're not going to get money to fund your campaign, if you'd like your job, you're going to play ball. And when that speaker goes, oh, by the way, I'm also going to defang you and make sure you don't have an ability to undermine me while I'm in power, you know, and you're going to do that, or guess what? You're not going to get funding for your campaign, and you're going to be out of here by next time. We'll give money to somebody else who's going to play ball. Again, you got a seat to defend. So, I mean, I disagree fundamentally with the rules change. I believe AOC's also mentioned this. I've heard her name a little bit talking about some of this stuff and talking about her amenability to rules changes. Because at the end of the day, AOC and Lauren Boebert, as much as I don't like Lauren Boebert, her and AOC both are in the lane of outsider politics and uninstitutionalized politics. So both of them would absolutely, what's the word? Benefit from rules changes that free them up to push back against their party leaders a little bit more. So.
And you don't have a check, you don't have a balance. Kevin McCarthy wanted to leave that as Nancy Pelosi had it. There were concessions. He got down to 50, he got down to 20, got down to 5. No, Thomas Jefferson wrote it as one member. Any one member can bring that motion to vacate the chair forward. And that is our accountability. This is something that was my red line. And I've only heard from a staff member who chased us out of the GOP conference and begged us to vote for Kevin McCarthy. We'll give you a single member motion to vacate. And I said, that's adorable. Where's Kevin saying it?
I guess that is him saying it, Lauren. I don't know if you know this. Most people communicate through staffers for the most part, but okay.
I know you're short on time. So what happens after all of this context? I mean, I think you've explained your position very, very well. I think that it is pretty clear that Leader McCarthy, he thought he had the votes and he didn't have the votes. And the same thing happened in 2015. Let's not forget, Kevin McCarthy was the heir apparent after John Boehner. He didn't have the votes, and that's how Paul Ryan emerged as the compromise candidate. So what happens? What could Kevin McCarthy come out and say right now?
Am I the only one who kind of forgot Paul Ryan existed? Like, I genuinely forgot Paul Ryan existed. Mainly because he fucking scooted the fuck out of there after they passed the tax cuts.
That would win over your votes and maybe the votes of your colleagues in the Freedom Caucus. Or if there's nothing that he could say, who would you support today? I know that this is a little bit in flux, but who would you support today to replace him?
Ooh, so I know they were talking about Ron Johnson being a alternative candidate, but apparently he's actually come out in support of McCarthy and said that that's who people should be voting for. So, you know, I mentioned earlier Gates floated Trump, which sure you're allowed. It's a free country, you're allowed, but you know, I will say a big problem for them is they don't have an alternative yet. I mean, you know, they can do this for weeks, months. We could not have a speaker in 6 months. It wouldn't really matter. So I mean,
right. So we have been offering a menu of other candidates. I don't believe that my switching to Kevin McCarthy matters, because there are so many who are solidly, Kevin, you can issue a public apology.
Like 20
you can change all the rules. You can wear a straitjacket and just have a portrait that says that you're speaker and we get to run this place. And they're not going to vote for Kevin McCarthy.
Then right back to it?
At this point, we do have to start looking forward to other candidates. And I can name 200 who are potential candidates right out of the conference GOP. I'm excluding myself, so that's why that number is 200, and Kevin's excluded as well. But you know, this is something that we have to start talking about.
God, can you imagine Speaker of the House Lauren Boebert? That would actually kind of be amazing.
presented Jim Jordan. We have presented Andy Biggs. We've presented Byron Donalds. I've heard Jim Banks' name.
I'm surprised they didn't. I'm surprised they didn't
Maybe it's
jump on Byron
Congress.
Donalds.
Maybe it's a Lee Zeldin who actually won us the majority. Without his efforts in New York running for governor, we wouldn't have the majority.
Also, keep in mind, Obama was like what I think a 2-term senator at most, possibly 1 term, when he then ran for president and won and became like president for 2 fucking terms. So like the way the House and the House and like the Senate work, like there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to have these I don't want to say mavericks, but maybe mavericks the word, but these mavericks, these rock stars, these real representatives of Americans in their party. There's no reason why they shouldn't be able to ascend the ladder. There is like, you know, an argument for pragmatism, but I find pragmatism ends up just kind of being an excuse to not to kind of not meet your voters where they are. Hi, what are you doing? Hello. Okay, I'm gonna put you over here. You go run around, do other stuff. Maybe when I go to grab water. Good? Okay, cool. When I go to grab something to drink. Now my shirt's all fucked up. Okay, anyway.
Yeah. And maybe it's someone who is in the conference, like a Kevin Hern, who is currently chairman of the Republican Study Committee, which is the largest caucus in the Republican conference. He was unanimously elected with 173 votes to chair that committee, and he actually has a balanced budget that he wants to put on the floor, which is another thing that Kevin denied in our proposal on January 2nd. So maybe it's someone like that who already has the trust of the conference and can truly get to 218.
Before I let you go, Lauren, is the trust now just irreparably broken? That is to say, if Kevin McCarthy came out and issued a statement and said, okay, I'll give you single member motion to vacate, okay, I'll give you this, that, or the other thing, 1, would that change your vote? And 2, would that change enough votes to put him into the speakership? I know you've suggested maybe not, but just to be totally clear, are you saying that from the people you're talking to, McCarthy's speaker candidacy is actually dead?
It's dead, yes. The nails are in the coffin.
Sheesh.
And there are plenty of members who are cheering our efforts on, who are afraid of retribution. We were threatened in conference. It was a nightmare in there. We were threatened by steering committee members who actually assign committees to members of Congress that if we vote against Kevin at all, we will not receive committee assignments. And Kevin McCarthy.
So that's also the thing that they've been threatening them with, is just essentially being like, oh, you're not gonna vote. Oh, okay, that's cool. Say goodbye to any committee assignments. Which, I mean, if he gets in and he has a caucus of people that don't have committee assignments, he might as well be shooting himself in the fucking ankles for the next 2 years.
Affirmed that. He stood up and said, your district elects you, your conference elects what committee you are assigned to. And so trust is broken. As it stands for me, I am a no on Kevin. And there are too many others who are there who don't allow him to get to 218. He doesn't have the numbers, Michael.
Wow. That's really, really big. And I have to tell you, I know that people are pulling their hair out over this, especially in the...
Man, get fucked, Kevin McCarthy. Am I right? Like, Jesus. Get utterly fucking curb stomped. Yeah. We will kind of see how... You know, if you ask me to guess, I am surprised Byron Davis hasn't gotten. I think I'm assuming it's. Let me double check. Let me make sure it is the name I'm thinking. Byron Davis Smith. Byron Davis David Smith, maybe. No, that's not it at all. Am I crazy? Davis? Oh, it's David. It's David on the thing. Byron Davis. No. Okay, maybe I didn't catch their name. Benjamin Byron Davis? Isn't that like a actor? Am I crazy? Oh, that's Dutch Vanderland. Okay. Point is, that's probably whose name I'm thinking of. Point is, he's a senator. He's a congressman from Texas. I'm kind of surprised they didn't go with him. Just because, you know, Texas guy kind of seems like something they'd want to seize upon. But yeah, Kevin McCarthy's kind of fucked. You know, if you ask me to guess, I don't know whose I think it is a genuine 50-50 that Hakeem Jeffries becomes speaker. In the most, like, it sounds kind of shocking, but like almost certainly that like it's at a 50-50 for me at this point. What is happening behind me? Oh, he's doing that. Okay. But yeah. Poor guy. I feel sorry for Kevin McCarthy. But okay. So, actually, I'm going to take a break like for 2 seconds to go grab a drink, and let him out, and then I'll be back. So, one sec. One second. Won't be long. All right, cool. I told you it wouldn't be that long. Told you. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, we went over, at least to that point, which I don't think there was too much more afterwards, the legendarily internet world famous Twitter files. Overall, the Twitter files, not really that interesting and not really all that controversial when you really stop and not catastrophize everything about it. What I found mostly about the Twitter files is that it kind of revealed the exact obvious thing that you would guess happens on the internet, which is the FBI and other law enforcement agencies keep an eye on these platforms since they are radicalization tools, especially on the internet. Not really weird, but it seems like in the fallout of that, it looks like a Matt Taibbi showed up on Tucker Carlson's show to, I guess, kind of continue his Twitter files tour. So I kind of just saw this. I haven't seen it. I don't know what he says. I'm sure it's going to be kind of like Taibbi's original Twitter files, really overwritten and really overwrought with, just, I can't even say extreme. It's just like very incensed language, very like worried language over something that, if you ask Matt Taibbi, do you suppose it might be useful for like these agencies to utilize or create relationships with platforms that house a mass amount of communications on the internet? He'd probably say, yeah, that makes sense because, yeah, that makes sense because it's not all that shocking. But anyway, let's kind of hear what Matt has to say.
And as we said,
oh wait, why, Tucker, why are you always so quiet? Feels like. Also, for any of the ASMR folks out here, this one's for you. All right. Hopefully you enjoyed that. What do we got tonight? What is this? Thai tea? Yeah. Good old. You've never had this before. Delicious. Very good stuff. You can get it at your local Asian food mart.
About it because of Matt Taibbi, who has been at the center of it. He joins us tonight. Matt, thanks so much for coming on. So I would just offer to our audience.
I just want to say, God, it's like how do I describe this? It's like chocolate milk, but you know how chocolate milk feels really overly sugary and like you kind of feel like, oh, this is like, I feel dirty. I feel like I'm betraying my parents by drinking this drink that's supposed to be helping my bones, but I'm really just layering my bones with a layer of chocolate and sugar. And it's a little bit how that feels, but without the guilt, because it's just tea. And it's also orange. Anyway.
Your extensive reporting on this, which is on Twitter and on your Substack.
Is that Skeptic Wolf? I bet it is.
Hey,
what's up?
For weeks now. How deep was the penetration of Twitter?
Oh my God, stop using this language. How deep was the penetration?
I think we can say pretty conclusively after looking at tens of thousands of emails.
Oh, also, before I let Matt Taibbi get on here, and I don't want to say lie, but characterize his investigation a little bit loosely here. Matt Taibbi was not granted full and unfiltered access to internal Twitter communications. What he was given access to was curated, hand-picked information by Elon Musk and or his team. So when Matt Taibbi goes on here, and I'm sure is going to talk about, you know, all the communications that they were able to see, all of the this and that, let's remember that at the end of the day, Matt Taibbi was only shown a certain picture of the information. He was only shown a certain lens of the internal communications of Twitter. And he's drawn this conclusion
over the course of these weeks that the government was in the censorship business in a huge way. That's, I think, provable now. And not just one agency, really every conceivable wing of the enforcement agencies of the U.S. government were in some way or another sending moderation requests to Twitter. And in many cases...
Also, by the way, I don't know if you can see this. The name of the video is Twitter Files Publisher. Quote, every conceivable wing, unquote, of federal enforcement sent censorship requests. Now, the censorship requests were of, if you remember correctly, revenge porn. Or at the very least, what would dictate as revenge porn. So, you know, especially with the Hunter stuff, because that's what people seem to be really upset about. But
cases, those requests were being fulfilled, and they were coming from everywhere, from every place from the NSA to the HHS to FBI, DHS.
I'm going to finish it too quickly? Okay.
Even what they call other government agencies, which I think is code for the CIA.
The FIB.
So we have reports from all over.
The Vegan Investigatory Board.
Everywhere.
So that's prima facie illegal. It's unconstitutional. Government cannot censor political speech. It could not be clearer. So,
fun fact, not illegal. You can absolutely request that content that you deem to be against a platform's terms of service. You're allowed to request it be removed. If somebody put my huge dick on Twitter, I'm allowed to go and tell them, hey, can you take down that very large 4K picture of my very large penis? I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to do that. That's not censorship. If it's against a platform's TOS, that is simply asking for enforcement of their terms of service. So let's get that clear. There's no illegality here. The illegality that he's trying to kind of launder is because news corporations, or not even news corporations, I would say, individuals along with smaller publications were publishing articles or links to what am I thinking? To websites where you could see Hunter Biden's Johnson. So let's like keep this in mind.
Our assumption is that this was made possible because of hysteria about Russian penetration of our politics. Is that your read of it?
Absolutely.
Do you think that's not happening?
That I put out yesterday traces the history.
For fuck's sake! Wait, when did this get uploaded? When did this get uploaded? 14 hours ago. Matt, nobody's paying attention anymore, man. Nobody cares. It was all an enormous, like, there's like nothing burgers, and then there's Oh, yeah, you've been given very selective information and been told to draw a specific conclusion. Like, calm down.
Of 2017, Twitter somewhat naively thought that they would not be sucked into the Russiagate phenomenon. They really thought this was going to be Facebook's problem alone. But when it started to become politically very
Russiagate, not a conspiracy. People went to jail for it.
On the Senate Intel Committee, Mark Warner, the senator of Virginia, put pressure on them. There was an email that talked about how he was pressuring them to, quote, keep producing material for them. Ultimately, Twitter ended up caving, and by the end of the year, they had an internal guidance, which I think is very significant, where they said publicly, we will only remove content at our sole discretion. Privately, we will remove content, any content that's identified by the United States intelligence community as a foreign state actor conducting cyber operations. So if the intel community says...
Wait, so yeah, that makes sense. Twitter's not in the business of policing cybersecurity. Like, yeah, they're not in a position to make that assessment. The FBI or the CIA would be in a position to make that assessment. Like, okay, like, naturally, clearly, obviously.
We take it down, we're going to take it down.
And of course, a lot of the people who were censored were not foreign state actors in at least one case that you documented.
At least one case.
And I have to ask, there are a lot of different nonprofit organizations that purport to defend...
Tucker Carlson could have said a real number. Understand, Tucker Carlson could have said a real number. But, wasn't really super interested in giving us a real number. Just at least one. Keep that in mind.
There are a lot of them. Have any of them weighed in on this?
You could have said 100 if you wanted to. But would that be honest?
And that's been
Can he
a
get
profound
sued?
disappointment. You know, for me personally, I gave to the ACLU for years. I'm one of those sort of dyed-in-the-wool liberals and grew up that way.
Oh my God, spare me, Matt.
I'm deeply disappointed. I think a lot of people who are sort of politically on that side of the aisle are missing the boat on this. They don't understand the gravity of the situation. They're thinking about this in partisan terms. It's not a partisan story. This is a story about the architecture of the intelligence community and law enforcement getting its...
Well, it's funny, Matt, that you'd mention that people are looking at your reporting as partisan, considering you were given, again, filtered information and are now showing up on a hyper-partisan news network whose sole goal has been to communicate to its viewers that being conservative online has meant that you've been a victim of government censorship, when what you've been is a victim of terms of service. So don't come on here. Don't give me this bullshit about how everybody else is treating this as a partisan issue. You have been given information. You were given specific information to come to a very specific conclusion that, shockingly, was a rather partisan conclusion and was kind of been a narrative for years, for decades at this point. So spare me. Fucking spare me.
On speech and on the ability of people to communicate with one another through platforms like Twitter and Facebook. And they're doing this in a very profound way, much more serious than I thought it was at the beginning of this story.
In relative terms, Twitter is a smaller player. I mean, you have Facebook and Google that dwarf it in size. I mean, we've got to assume that those two companies are as penetrated as Twitter has been, don't we?
You would think.
Yes, and there's evidence for that. Certainly,
you would definitely think, Wolf,
that they had what they called weekly or monthly industry meetings.
They seem to not like the whole "it's a private company, they get to do what they want" thing when it affects them. You notice that little bit of because the difference is leftists don't like Twitter, but what have we been arguing for? The federalization of a platform like Twitter. Like that's what we've been saying. They've just been wanting it to be their own little safe space.
FBI, and those included a number of companies.
And also, I keep forgetting this and then remembering it again. Matt over here is complaining about fucking partisanship, and that leftists or liberals look at this in a benign light because they see it as only a partisan issue. When meanwhile, Matt should know full well that upon other Twitter files drops, they already confirmed for us that Chaya Raichik, the person who runs Libs of TikTok, who conveniently showed up on Tucker's platform, was getting was getting preferential treatment by the platform. Twitter specifically did not let her account be banned or be altered by normal employees. You had to go to the top to have any enforcement of their TOS on her. She was subject to a different set of rules. So don't, again, this whole like partisanship, as if like, you know, oh, liberals don't care because it's conservatives. No, fucking spare me. You're doing the same thing that a lot of people do, which is constantly make this equalization of damage done to both sides, and going and pretending that conservatives on Twitter follow the rules of TOS, just go about their business, and you know, they voice their opinions and they get banned, they get shadow banned, they get censored by the government. Guess what? Most of the people we're talking about are breaking TOS, are pushing extremist language, and are promoting a lot of damaging ideologies onto people, which in turn radicalizes people to do stuff like January 6th, which means the FBI and other investigatory bodies do have a certain interest in keeping an eye on this stuff. And also, fun fact, Twitter at any point could say, we will perform action on this account and not on that. But funnily enough, you don't see the times. Matt did not see the times when Twitter said, no, actually, we don't want to do action on, we don't want to perform action on this account. He somehow only was given stuff where they had reasonable and clear TOS breakages by right-wing accounts that the government flagged for, again, breaking TOS, even if they're small accounts. Like, that's what they keep an eye on. Like,
including Facebook, in some cases Wikipedia, Pinterest. There were a whole series of companies that were included in these communications. How deep the penetration goes in those
Pinterest, man, come on now.
Say, but I do know that they had very close communications.
What a fucking boomer.
In Twitter's case, the number of requests that
Tucker, what's going on here? Do you need something? Why does Tucker always look like he's taking like just the most enormous shit ever?
That came in was really overwhelming. Your previous
like
guest,
this
Michael
stoic look.
They were paid $3 million
like,
by the FBI. They were underpaid. They were doing so much work for the government in terms of reviewing these documents that they should have compensated a lot more for their work.
How can it be a free society or a democracy if law enforcement and intel agencies are determining what we can say?
Oh, fun fact, you don't get to say anything you want on a public platform. Sorry, on a privately owned public platform, by the way. Same way you don't get to go to Starbucks and yell fucking racial epithets. Like, yes, the cops will show up and tell you to stop doing that. Like,
well, people are hiding behind the fig leaf of, well, they didn't formally ask, they didn't demand that you do it, but
well, yeah.
How much of an ask is it really? How voluntary is it really when the FBI or the NSA or the CIA?
I don't know, Matt. Maybe a proper investigation into it would help instead of an obvious sham investigation. Not even sham, it's just an obvious partisan investigation. Jesus Christ.
Or the DHS.
I used to have respect. The thing why I'm so angry is I used to have respect for Matt Taibbi.
We assess that these,
but, you know,
these accounts are
he probably got paid a lot of money.
And they're foreign threat actors. I think these companies feel enormous pressure to do the moderation, and the initial work that we've done proves.
Or are we watching McCarthy take an L earlier?
This is one. There are many problems if a set Americans.
I think this was yesterday.
One to fix. Just ban it. Government agencies are not allowed to censor speech in the United States. I think it's a pretty easy thing.
Right, yeah. You're also... Sure, yeah. You do realize that you're not allowed to yell fire in a crowded building, right? Like we understand this. There are limits to speech. And there's a certain amount of, you know, at the end of the day, any website like Twitter is going to have a TOS because they want to protect their ability to have the platform that they've built be dictated by them. It is their platform. I'm perfectly fine with that. That seems fair. You know, you build Twitter, you build a mass communication thing. You don't want to be 4chan. Let 4chan, let 8chan, let all of them be them. But like, you know, if you want to be Twitter, then, you know, you got to play with Twitter rules. Like, it's fucking stupid. Like, it's actively fucking stupid. First of all, for people who are like so interested in the US's proliferation in terms of our influence around the world, our intelligence gathering, the idea that the FBI would not at least keep some kind of eye and communication open with Twitter or other social media platforms, fucking insane. Like, you're insane. You have no way then to police or even keep an eye on radicalization movements, not just in your country, but around the world. So it's really fucking stupid, really dumb fucking take. But it's annoying. Okay, let me take a sip and we'll reset. I should probably do the thing that they always tell you to do on those like make your streams better videos. If you're enjoying the show so far, I really appreciate you watching. I would also really appreciate if you hit that little follow button. It really helps out the channel, really helps out the show. I do this about 3 days out of the week, and I'd really like to get those extra 2 days, and then I don't have to even worry about going to my arduous and as much as I like cooking, I'd rather be doing other things with my life, something a little bit more meaningful. You can only make so many burgers and still feel something so many times. So, but either way, if you still need some more convincing, stick around, hang out. We're gonna go over a few more things, and then I'm sure some people clicked on this because they saw I did mention Andrew Tate in my titles. I promise we'll get to it. But let me take a sip of this, and then we're moving on to something else really quickly. God, that's delicious. So, it is 2023, which I need to start getting used to saying. But with that comes our inaugural Matt Walsh video. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying, Josh, you covered a lot of Matt Walsh last year. You have only been streaming, like seriously, like this from this format, for a couple months now. But your content is very centered on your opposition to Matt Walsh, to which I'd say you have done a good job in assessing my objective when it comes to my political rhetoric. I do not like Matt Walsh, except for his avatar take. Me and him are on the same page of that. We are brothers in that campaign. But this year we're going to start. It's a shorter video, so we're not going to do one of those long form ones. Don't you worry too much. We're not going to be here too long. But I kind of want to take a look at it, and then and then we'll keep on moving. So recently, I guess Dana White got into some little bit of controversy. I guess a video of him went viral of him looking like he heard the UFC bell ring while having a conversation with his wife, and things didn't really work out too well for him on the old internet. So actually, let me see if I can find it really quickly. I realized I didn't even queue up the video. So let's see if we can. Let's see. If you're not sure, if you're not aware, Dana White is the I guess he'd be CEO of the UFC. So he's the Vince McMahon of the UFC. He's the whoever the fuck owns the NBA and whoever owns the whatever. But he's the guy for the UFC. And I guess this was somebody filmed him at what I assume is Vegas. UFC spends a lot of time in Vegas. Let's watch this first, and then we'll go watch Matt's thing, because I want to get a good look at all of this. Oh, nope, it's not muted. We're gonna mute you because I don't care about the sound. I don't need to hear the like super fucking loud in my ears. All right, we're muted. We're good. Okay. All right, so wish I could slow this down actually. All right. Okay, so they're holding hands. She's like saying something. God damn, is it fucking hard to see anything? Looks like she's upset about something. Ooh, okay. Oh, the video paused itself. Okay. Uh-huh. Okay. Ooh, okay. Makes sense. Then what happens? Oh, okay, and then they kind of get into the classic school pushing and shoving, and and stuff. Some guy, it looks like, comes over here. All right, yeah, looks like they get separated. I think. What is happening? Looks like somebody is touching his bald ass head. No, I don't need to see the action slowed down. What? Okay, it looks like got some people hanging out. I don't think he's being attacked right now. This doesn't look like the body language of somebody being attacked. Okay, so okay. All right. So let's do our version of kind of going over this. And then let's see what I already saw a bit of Matt's take. So okay. So they're probably had, it seems like, had a little conversation. They're doing a thing. We have a jump cut here, which makes me think, okay, there was some kind of disagreement. She's obviously got her hands here, kind of, in the full hands over face crying position, clearly upset about something. He kind of comes back. She's not expecting him to come back. They have some conversation. He tries to kind of grab her wrist and do all that. She gives him like a pretty, if we're rating this, if we're doing a little bit of moist critical here, not a lot of follow through, just a little bit, just a bah, like a nothing too crazy so far. I keep forgetting that the fucking video pauses on its own. Okay, Dana posts, delivers with what seems like a pretty, a comparable strike. Granted, coming from somebody who's much larger, much stronger. Right. Okay. So far, okay. Ooh. Okay. Okay. Right. And then the second strike comes. So seems like let's kind of take a look at here. Dana White's wife. Stop it. No. I knew Pitbull would be playing. I don't actually know if that's Pitbull. Dana White's wife. God, say that 3 times fast. Slaps him, to which he responds by rightfully slapping her back. Rightfully is a word. Okay. It isn't even slightly outrageous. If you truly believe in equality for women and men, you wouldn't bat an eyelid looking at this video. Women do not get a free pass to beat men. So this is a cringe take, mainly because this is one of those. Let's break this down sentence by sentence. Dana White's wife. God, that was hard. Dana White's wife slaps him, to which he responds by rightfully. Is assault a positive, a good, a legal response to someone striking you? No, it's not. It's simply not. Now, the thing that this person also wants to leave out, which I think is important, is if you noticed in the video, and we'll go back and we'll kind of take a look here. Holy shit, that's right. I turned this on just to kind of reduce the light, but let's go back. Shut up. Okay. So, if you want to notice here, they're going about their business. They're kind of having a conversation. He grabs her wrist, right? This is I'm going to control you for a moment. You're going to come with me. Like, that's what this is. Because he's clearly, so let's be clear. He put his hands on her first. Let's establish that. Now, is the slap good? No, it's not. Nobody, women or men, should be responding to any, I think, what's the word I'm looking for? Not undangerous. That's not really a word. Any benign contact that should not be responded to with intentful harm. Now, I don't think Dana White's wife was intending harm here. This was a defensive strike after what clearly they had some kind of tough conversation that she was upset by. With him approaching her in a maybe aggressive way. We can't hear what he's saying, but he obviously grabs her and wants her to stay where she is so they can have a conversation. She does not. She slaps him in an attempt to kind of shock him out of releasing her so that she can go about whatever she's doing. Now, I don't agree. She shouldn't have slapped him. Dana also shouldn't have grabbed her and shouldn't have tried to control her positioning at that moment. He heard the UFC bell and went for a wrist lock way too early here. So, looking at this, and she hits him. He returns with what looks like a pretty comparable strike, but Dana White's a pretty big guy. You can expect that strike was probably more significant than her on him. Because let's be honest here. Let's look at the impact. Since this person clearly has an interest in making these equal, does that look very impactful? Now, on the other hand, okay. Yeah, he smacks her, pulls her, as she's reacting, pulls her back up, strikes again. That is why Dana White is getting a lot of heat. Because the excessive force that he's shown, especially after that return strike, is already disqualifying. I have a certain leniency when it comes to married folks kind of being, not assaulting each other, but certainly coming to disagreements and arguing, right? And the minute someone puts their hands on each other, or there's some kind of, any kind of strike of any kind, anything like that, I believe it is in both parties' responsibility to fairly assess their situation. I think it's unfair to try and say, actually, let me bring up that tweet really quickly again. I think it's unfair to try and pretend that Dana White was in any kind of danger or in any kind of situation where he not only needed to respond with what he would perceive as equal force, or really respond in anything that wasn't, what's the word? That wasn't using your fucking words. Now, also, so let's go back to this tweet really quickly, because this is also going to be indicative of later. It isn't even slightly outrageous. I would say it's slightly outrageous. This was not a beating on the level that we saw. I believe it was like a football player a couple years ago, where like homeboy mauled his fucking girlfriend or wife. I don't remember. I don't remember the deep details, but I do remember it was like elevator footage. It was pretty bad. But yeah, when we're talking about rightfully is well, you hit me, I get to hit you. Which, is that how the world works? Is that how we as a society have decided to respond to violence with more violence? This is unhelpful. This kind of mindset is unhelpful and only leads to more violence. This kind of perspective is one of somebody who doesn't feel big enough to have their ego be damaged. Because that's what was damaged by Dana White's wife. She damaged his ego in public, because she damn sure didn't damage his jaw, and she damn sure didn't damage his skull. He's not going to have CTE after that. What he's going to have is a damaged ego, and he responded in the only way that he knew how, which was to return that embarrassment, to then exert his force on another person. If that was a man who did that, it'd be the same conversation. The only difference is he would be attempting to exert his force in a situation where he wanted to prove he was the dominant member. He was the dominant player on that board. And in this case, he knew at any point he could dominate that woman. And he took an opportunity to remind her of that in public. Now, let's get on to this next little bit. If you truly believe in equality for men and women. So, this is brain damage. Anybody who believes who this person is talking to are people who believe that women and men should be able to vote, should be able to live equal lives. And this guy says, you want women to vote? Huh. Like, what? Is that? Well, if you think women should be allowed to vote, then women and men should be able to just assault each other at will. And funnily enough, men will be the actual victors of those assaults. So it dog shit brain damage going on right here. You wouldn't bat an eyelid looking at the video. Funny, because I do believe in equality for men and women. The equality to, fun fact, not be assaulted. How about that? How about we all come together as a group and say, hey, maybe nobody assault each other. And if you are assaulted, maybe let's kind of contextually look at the scenario. Let's look at the situation. Let's also take into account that, if you're not really big enough, because understand this is also machismo at the end of the day. If you're not big enough to allow yourself, because again, we have to remember this, Dana White's not in danger here. Dana White's not defending himself from physical harm. He's defending himself from egotistical harm. And if you're not big enough to put that aside, then at least in my opinion, it's a bit cringe to a degree. You wouldn't bat an eyelid. Women don't get a free pass to beat men. So let's kind of think about that. Dana White's wife strikes him after he grabs her wrist when she wants to get away from him. That, I think, was at least mildly obvious from the footage. She's trying to leave, and he grabs her wrist in an attempt to keep her where she was. She then strikes him in hopes that will shock him enough that she can release herself and leaves. And what does he do? He strikes her twice. And this guy, this dipshit, gets on Twitter and goes, women do not get a free pass to beat men. You see how this is kind of making two things equal where there isn't an equality? How they try to pass off the equality of men beating women because they go, oh, well, if we live in a world where women can beat men, then now we get to be the victims, and now look at that, we're victims of egotistical assault. We get to physically assault women. That's the danger of this tweet. This tweet is fucking dog shit and mostly just fucking stupid. I don't really have, at the end of the day, what we want for society is people to not assault each other. We do not want women to believe that they can assault men, but we also do not want men to believe that they get to do likewise. It can't be men get to retributively, I don't know if that's a word, get to engage in retribution, and women don't get to do the same. That's not a thing. That's not good for society. We all need to come to an understanding that, guess what? Both people in this case, especially this case, are in the wrong. Both people hit each other. But to boil this down to women in America these days are way too comfortable with assaulting men, and Dana White was standing up for all men everywhere, but all not nonsense, utter nonsense, coward activity, absolute utter coward activity. But we have this person on Twitter. Let's take a look at what somebody with a platform with 2 million subscribers, woof, thinks about this.
Yahoo Sports. UFC president Dana White admits to slapping his wife on New Year's Eve.
Cool.
Now, this is the story that's gotten a lot of attention. Dana White slaps his wife.
Twice.
Beat his wife, as some on social media have put it. Lots of outrage
He definitely hit her twice.
About this. Lots of claims that White is a domestic abuser. Lots of condemnation, etc. Before we talk about it, let's check the video. Here it is.
That's a bit far. Ooh, funny that they didn't want to show the interaction beforehand, Matt. Isn't that convenient?
Okay. So there it is.
I hope I don't.
So his wife slaps him. He slaps her
clapped
back,
up for that.
and all the headlines saying Dana White slapped his wife could just as well say Dana White's wife slaps Dana White, but
Sure.
we know why they don't. Here's what I'll.
Well, I think it's kind of obvious. Dana White responded. Again, we watched the video. Well, we watched the unedited video where he clearly tries to keep her in place. And she responds by slapping him. And then he proceeds to slap her twice. So I don't know, man. This sounds like 3 strikes versus 1 strike, you know?
I'll say about this. You know, the position most people, especially on the left,
right? That's me.
have on this, condemning Dana White. And this maybe
That's
is the theme we're talking about today. People who have incoherent positions. Well,
I wouldn't say I condemn Dana White, but I definitely do think that that definitely seemed like a weak man's response. I'll say it. Dana White is a weak man for responding in that fashion. He is a weak, bitch, bald baby boy. I'm okay with saying that. I'll fight Dana White. I don't give a shit. Won't fight fair, but
the position of most of these people, again, particularly on the left, it's an incoherent position. Because
get on with it, man. Tell me my
that
position.
Men and women are entirely equal.
Holy
There's no
shit.
difference between the two. In fact,
holy shit. Okay. I didn't realize he was going to say literally the exact same thing that Twitter person said. Okay, that's fair.
The categories don't even exist according to you. They don't even, like these words don't even mean anything, if that's what you believe.
That's not the belief. Go, one second.
In fact, the categories don't even exist according to you. They don't even.
That's not true. The argument from the left is not that the categories don't exist. It's that the categories are social constructs and can change at any point. The argument from the left is that men and women as gender categories are fluid, not static. And also kind of meaningless. Because they are. I mean, they're meaningless like a lot of things are meaningless. Laws aren't real. They're not real. They're social constructs that we've created to build positive, functioning societies. That's marriage. Not real. Not real. You're not in a real, that's not a real thing. It is a social construct that we've created as people forming societies.
It's like these words don't even mean anything, if that's what you believe, which every person on the left just about pretends to believe. Then
not this guy. I believe they exist and that they're fluid.
For condemning, for any serious condemnation of Dana White, because then you have one individual who was slapped by another individual, and that individual slapped back. So yeah, you could blame him and say, be the bigger man, be more mature.
Wait, what is this? What is this? Matt, we're both men here. Were we not taught that you don't hit women because well, first of all, hitting anybody in any kind of offensive fashion unwarranted is weakness. You're a weak little bitch baby bald boy. The fuck? I've only struck one person in my life, and it was out of defense. That's it. It's the only time I've ever had to use my mitts, my fists to solve a problem. Because I'm not a fucking small person. I mean, I am. I'm only 5'5", but not in that way. I'm big. I'm big brained. I'm big energy. Solve problems with your words like a fucking adult. And also, again, we're also playing with the dynamics here. Matt wants to make it as 2 individuals. You're right. 2 individuals got into a scuffle. The difference is one individual wasn't really threatening the other person. One individual was trying to separate themselves from the other. And in defense, slapped the other person. It's funny how if you leave out that initial detail, this does look like just, as far as Matt Walsh could tell it, 2 people just walked up to you and went, wha-pa. The other one went, wha-pa. And that was it. We watched the video. We watched her walk away. Obviously, they were separated. He comes back. She tries to leave. He grabs her. She slaps him to get away, and he slaps her twice. You tell me what that sounds like.
Or whatever, but it's to go beyond that just doesn't make any sense. So if you're consistent in that belief, then you should look at that video and react to it the exact same way that you would react to a different video of a man, let's say a smaller man, walks up to Dana White, slaps him in the face, and then
that's not what happened though, is it? Dana White approached her, isn't it? If a small dude is just hanging out, Dana White comes, talks to him. Dude's like, I don't really want to talk to you right now. Dana White grabs them. They're going to, you've engaged in contacting them. They're going to respond. The fuck? Again, Matt is I mean, let's be honest. He edited out the initial clips of their conversation and of his approach. They jumped straight to. They didn't even let you build up to the slap. They just went straight for and go. And they started with that. So that should tell you already. If you're a viewer of Matt Walsh, if you somehow stumbled into this, I want you to think about why they didn't show you the setup for that. Why Matt and his team were not interested in showing you what led to that interaction. And why they only showed you in a vacuum the actual interaction. Like the interesting part of the interaction, I should say. So keep that in mind.
Dana White slaps that man back. If you believe that men and women are entirely equal, then you should react to the one of him and his wife the same way you'd react to that. And how would you react? How would anyone react?
Also, have you guys ever seen that video? There's a, what is it? I want to say it's, might be Jubilee. It might be Jubilee, but it's a YouTube video, and it's like men and women kind of just sitting in in a random ass room, and they like slap the shit out of each other. Like they just sit down and go, wham. And like some people take it easy on people. Some people like just fucking go in for it. And like, do you want to know why that video isn't, what's the word? Isn't transgressive? Why it's not like, why you're not like thrown off by it? Like it's a video. It's a whole video. There's like dudes. There are men who are bigger than the women who sit down. They talk for a second and they just fucking full, maybe not full force, but like they slap each other back and forth, right? And the reason why it's not, what's the word? It's not controversial. It doesn't evoke after the first time or so, maybe the second or third, it doesn't evoke much of a response to you is mainly because there's no intent behind it. Men and women scuffling, men and women play sports together. There are women who played, there was a girl who like played football on our high school football team. And she got tackled like the guys. She tackled like the guys. All the rest of this stuff. Women and men getting into scuffles in an equal setting. No problem here, man. Like intergender wrestling is a thing. Like I believe in there's a promotion in Japan called DDT. They have intergender titles and intergender tag teams. There's nothing inherently wrong with contact sports with that are co-ed. Yeah. Mixed men and women. Where the problem lies is when it is men exerting physical dominating force over women in a context that is unnecessary. Like the entire Johnny Depp story became a thing and became a rallying cry for men because Johnny Depp was being assaulted by somebody and defending himself. Now, whether Johnny Depp was smaller than Amber Heard or larger than Amber Heard, if he's being assaulted, then, you do what you got to do. I'm not super familiar with the story. This is just what people are rallying around. But like, that is the bias people have against men assaulting women. Because traditionally, in an uncontrolled setting, it is men exerting force, exerting dominance over women. And most of the time, it's unnecessary. You see stuff like this from guys like Dana White. Was he in danger? Did he need to do any of that? No, he wanted to do that because that was the thing he wanted to do in that moment. He wanted to shut down her ability to challenge him. He wanted to exert that power over him, his physical advantage over her, to serve his ego. That's the critique. Not, men shouldn't be hitting women. Women shouldn't be hitting men. There are women who are jacked to the gills, bigger than me. And if they whoop my ass, I'd be saying, they whoop my ass. I'd be like, hey, you shouldn't be kicking people's asses. Like, even if you're bigger than even if you're a woman, you're bigger than a man, you shouldn't be assaulting men either. people exerting unnecessary force on others is bad. I don't get why this is a hard concept for Matt. I mean, I get it. He's a fascist. In his mind, in his worldview, to him, might makes right, if you've ever heard that phrase before. It's the idea that if you're strong, if you're powerful, you have a right to dominate others simply based on the fact that you can dominate others. It's damaging and it's bad. It creates a society of people who are ready, willing, and able to enact violence on each other. It's not good. It's not good. I shouldn't have to say that. It's not good. Not good. Might makes right is bullshit. It's for people who have small minds and an inability to communicate.
Back to a video of a smaller man walking up to Dana White, slapping him in the face, getting slapped back. Almost every single now there might be a few people who say, be more mature. But almost
why do you think we have
person
weight classes in
would
UFC?
Respond by saying, well, don't go up and slap Dana White. I mean, you got slapped back because you slapped him. If he's a bigger guy, you shouldn't be doing that. F-A-F-O, right? F around and find out. That's what everybody would be. That's what every single person would be saying.
Yes. I love this because there's also a lot of this on there's a subreddit called there was a r/there was an attempt. It's a fun subreddit. It's usually people trying to do something and completely failing at it, which sometimes is funny, but sometimes the subreddit, in its most uncomfortable moments to me, starts to turn into let's watch videos of women giving men enough of a reason, at the very least just barely a socially acceptable reason to assault a woman. But usually the part that I always find gross is those videos start with, okay, girl like hits a dude in the back of the head or like hits him a couple times. He might hit her. She falls backwards. They leave it at that. You know, at the end of the day, you're defending yourself. But what most of these videos end up turning into is girl hits the dude one or two times and dude lets off some kind of fucking Tekken juggling combo on them. After it's very clear, after the first or second strike, that there is no more danger posed to them. And it's this desire to watch men, at least the way I see it, it is this desire that some men seem to have where they want to see men exert force onto women. Maybe because people who watch that stuff don't get to do that, which really shouldn't be something you aspire to. But it certainly isn't, it's not something that I would say is good and doesn't speak well of the people watching it. I don't like it. I don't like people getting assaulted. Sometimes you see videos where people are acting like assholes and they fuck around, they find out something happens. But it's another case when it's clearly somebody overexerting their power. There is a line that you cross, and it's a very thin line. Because at the end of the day, you're engaging in assault. One return punch that I think most people would say that's fair can turn quickly into you've gone too far when you're just letting off a flurry. So let's finish this up, but
we all know that. So to heap any sort of extra condemnation on Dana White, that the only way to do that, the only way to condemn him beyond how you would condemn him if he slapped another man who slapped him first, which is you wouldn't condemn him hardly at all in that case, the only way to do it is on the grounds of chivalry. It's on the grounds of like a recognition that men and women are not equal and that there are codes of...
So this is also the thing. You don't need an understanding of men and women you don't need any of that. In my high school, when we went to high school, there was a situation where a very large football player fucking mauled one of the students who's much, much smaller than him in like the cafeteria line. Now, the person, I wasn't present for this. I was in the same cafeteria room, but I didn't see the initial spark to this. But from what it was described to me, that the smaller person was, egging on this person or kind of, needling them a bit. And that got under their skin and they took it way too far. They had to be separated by multiple people, but it wasn't in the case of like, we need to get these two away from each other. It was, this dude is mauling this person. And regardless of how much needling that person did, regardless of how much fucking around they did, the response was disproportionate. What we as leftists, and what me specifically, I'll speak for myself here actually, what I denounce is the disproportionate response to violence from any group. You don't need it for men versus women. You don't need it for women versus women. You don't need it for men versus men. You just need it across the board. People, what's the old saying? With great power comes great responsibility. That's true. I know it sounds a bit cliche. It sounds childish, maybe naive, possibly, but that's true. And more people need to live by that creed. And I mean it. I mean it 100%. If you have the ability to end a fight, don't take it any farther. You shouldn't take it farther. Plain and simple. You don't need men. You don't need women in the equation. You just need responsibility and an understanding of the position you're in.
Chivalry and conduct that men should abide by. That men should treat women differently from how they treat men. And women should treat men differently from how they treat other women. That is the only basis upon which you can coherently condemn Dana White here. But most people during the condemnation, they don't accept that basis. And so it's all incoherent. Which, by the way, and I'm a believer in chivalry.
Bet you are.
But does chivalry lead to the conclusion that...
Matt Walsh, also a believer that by the time you're 16, you're ready for pregnancy. It's also a Matt Walsh take.
It's never acceptable under any circumstance for a man to strike a woman? Well, of course not. I mean, there could certainly be and have been conceivable scenarios where self-defense is necessary. Like you're not called upon as a man to just be beaten silly.
Naturally.
And to not defend yourself at all because the person doing it is a woman.
I will say, there are women, there are feminists who think that. There are feminists who absolutely hate men enough to the point that they would make that argument. They're also wrong.
It's absurd. But as kind of a general principle, if you don't subscribe to the leftist notion that the sexes are equal, then you see that they're unequal, and you think, well, men should respond in situations differently to women than they respond to men. And that'll do.
Once again, so let's remind everybody, you don't need gender in any of this. It's simply those with more power, those with an ability to create more harm, have a responsibility to cut that harm off once they are in a safe position. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. You know where the line is where you've taken it too far. Whether it's a man, woman, whatever situation, you know when you now are not under threat, under duress. It's cringe. It's very cringe. It's very cringe. Like, at the end of the day, like I said, it's honest to God, it's a, with great power comes great responsibility. You should not be putting your hands on people. And if you're in a situation where you have to put your hands on somebody, you keep it proportional. That's all that anyone asks. And again, you do that whether you're in an altercation with a man or if you have an altercation with a woman. It's not hard. You don't need gender politics in any of this. It's really not hard. And it's really not incoherent. Matt tries to make it sound like this is incoherent. This is a simple take. Don't assault people, men or women. Easy. Right there. Don't do it. If you're in a situation where you have to, make it proportional. Understand the position you're in. If you're like some jacked guy, maybe check your ego a little bit. I'm not saying you got to go around getting assaulted by people, but you know what you're capable of. Right. So, all right. So, I'm going to change. Let's change this. Okay. Just gonna change the stream title really quickly. Okay, so this is going from kind of, you know, I didn't really plan this transition into this part of the show, but I'm kind of happy it's here. So I want to talk about Andrew Tate. I want to talk about Andrew Tate in two different ways. The first one I want to talk about from a political strategy, or from a more internal political politics standpoint. I want to talk about a problem that the left has when it comes to Andrew Tate and kind of the proliferation of his advice, of him as a person. So let me darken this really quickly. There we go. I just felt like I have so much light coming in my face. Hopefully nobody clips that. Nobody clips me. So Andrew Tate, current Romanian prison inmate, or I don't know what, maybe he's just in jail, I guess. A detainee, we'll say. Current Romanian detainee, before this point, was a rather popular and, can't say super well regarded, but we'll say a influential figure in the, not so much I'd say men's rights, but the men's advice space here on the internet. There's a couple reasons for that. Reason number one, Andrew Tate is a guy who has a lot of money. That's kind of a big part of that. Andrew Tate is also somebody who is historically rather predatory on the people that he revolves around from a career standpoint, i.e., before Andrew Tate became a self-help guru for men, he was running cam girl scams on the internet, which targeted the kind of lonely, isolated men that he purports to care and speak about. So, if you've been on the internet, if you've been on really kind of any platform, Twitter, TikTok, any of those, you've probably seen, clips of Andrew Tate. You've definitely seen, all the like his presence on the YouTube platform is rather dominant, I would say. Especially in the YouTube Shorts category, you see a lot of this. You see a lot of the kind of quick, snappy, here's some advice for all the guys out there kind of stuff. And I said I want to touch on the first aspect of this, and it's more of the political side of it, which is the left has been bad at this. And the reason why the left has been bad at this is, at least in my opinion, is mainly because the left broadly, especially in the US, has always been centered, has always been concerned with the rights and the quality of life of marginalized groups. That's kind of our bread and butter. Is sticking up, fighting for, even if some people do it in a way that's what's the word? Counterproductive. But the goal, that's what I'm looking for. The mission statement is to help as many people in marginalized groups and marginalized communities thrive and exist and thrive in our society. Which tends to mean that those who aren't in marginalized communities don't really get the same attention. the subgroup that probably gets the least amount of attention, least amount of, I think, credence or value thrown their way, is, quite frankly, straight, white, usually teenagers, but more specifically, males. This is a group that, if they told, I think when some of these young kids kind of, they opine on their place in the world, how they fit, their ability to find romance, their ability to, quite frankly, find value and enjoy their life. I think a lot of leftists, and that goes for normal people. I think normal people are going to be a bit better about this, but I think content creators on the left, and more broadly, some of the more online, living in the online space folks, have a really hard time empathizing with a group that isn't marginalized in the kinds of ways that we don't think are meaningful. And by that, I mean, if, some white boy, as another almost as big as me streamer said, 12-year-old white boys are not going around looking for political movements. They're not going around looking for political spaces. What they're going around looking for is people who can empathize and guide them down a positive route that will get them the thing, or at the very least, deliver them a outcome that is close, if not the one that they're looking for. One of these is a relationship. We have a lot of these younger males that are having sex a lot later, or having a real lack of it. We have a lot of these guys who don't really know their place in the world, who look at the job market, who look at the dating market, and they don't know where they fit in. They're not sure where they go to not just meet people, but how to fulfill their lives, how to do the thing that gives them the self-worth, and enough of that self-worth to go out into the world and attract people, attract women. And from a leftist perspective, especially online, it's hard to sympathize with that, because a lot of people, I think, have a knee-jerk reaction to turn around and go, how hard do you really have it? Dating is hard for everybody. At least you have all of your rights. At least, especially if you're white, you're the hegemon of the group, of all of these groups. You're told, or at the very least, you probably see rhetoric from leftists that are constantly telling you that you have problems that aren't important. Problems that might be the most important thing to you, but they don't see as worthy of their time or interest. And some actively will push back on you for expressing some of those opinions, and for gravitating towards people like Andrew Tate, who does the opposite. Andrew Tate is somebody who sees these guys have trouble dating, who sees these guys have trouble relating to others, who sees these guys have trouble finding their direction, finding their place in the world. And Andrew Tate's not a dumb guy. I mean, he kind of fucking is. But he's smart enough to recognize the opportunity in front of him, which is to make money on the back of these people by exploiting their insecurity and their lack of ability to see their direction. So, you know, I think a lot of leftists get really caught up, I think, in the idea that these guys who fall into the Andrew Tate sphere, who fall into the Jordan Peterson sphere, who fall into any of these self-help gurus, who, and let's be, you know, I'm safe in saying I think that Jordan Peterson offers a damaging format for understanding the world and understanding relationships. I think Andrew Tate is really just a opportunist and somebody who has a disdain for women enough that he's willing to make money off of it. Andrew Tate's personal opinions, I'm not really that interested in, because Andrew Tate, everything, he's paid for those opinions, and he's identified a group who can be guided down a path given enough strong rhetoric and vague statistics. And the left just doesn't do a good job at answering any of this, because we're a bit concerned. We are, and you know, I'd like to think on this platform, at least, I have been very vocal and very active in pushing back in what little way that I can against the anti-LGBT, anti-trans rhetoric that's been going on throughout the internet. There's a reason I go after Matt Walsh as much as I do. That being said, the movement on the left needs to evolve to be as egalitarian as we say it is. We simply cannot resign ourselves to being a political group made up of the marginalized. We must answer as many people as possible who have problems with policy prescriptions and social empathy. Now, you might be saying, how do we do that? Well, I'm not like some kind of political aid, guys. I work in a kitchen, all right? I flip burgers. I sweat all day. I'm basically Bob from Bob's Burgers, except not quite as old yet. But I do think that there is a place for men who are having trouble in society in 2023 in the left. And I think that, and going forward, let me say, going forward, what I want to make a goal on this platform is to address some of those issues. I've spoken before that I personally like having conversations with regular, everyday people. You know, Skeptic Wolf has been on here twice. I've had I believe, I forget what he described himself as, but if I remember correctly, it was at least some stripe of conservative, along with an anti-abortionist. I like talking with people, and what I want to do going forward is have some conversations with some of these guys that are having these problems. Now, I don't have a very large platform. I am only a person of, you know, I'm an operation of one right now. But with any luck, as this channel grows, as we continue to do these every day I gain, every stream I gain about 1 follower, which I'm happy about, because it means that at the very least, every time I put out a stream, every time I do this and I sit down in this chair and I talk for a couple hours, there's at least one person out there who either thought I said something interesting, somebody who wanted to have a conversation with me. And that's what I want to do with this whole men's issue stuff. In 2023, that's going to be a goal of this channel, is having that conversation with guys and offering as much substantive advice as I can in terms of how to think about the world and how to approach it, and how to approach specifically interpersonal relationships, because they are hard. And I don't think, I don't like the idea that I am on a wing of the political movement in this country where when people are looking for advice, looking for guidance, we tell them, you're not worthy yet. We'll get to you eventually. I think that does a disservice to the movement, and I think that does a disservice to those people, because we have better answers, and we need to believe that we have better answers, and we need to practice those better answers. So, with that being said, we have a little under an hour for the show left. We are going to take a look. I got like 2 videos here. Lord knows how long they're going to take. But we're going to go through, hopefully we're going to send the fishing line out to any of those Tate fans out there. And we're just going to kind of react and kind of go over some of the videos that I could find whenever I just typed in Andrew Tate on YouTube, advice on YouTube. Because that's what I'm kind of assuming people are looking for advice, looking for guidance. So let's dive in. Let's kind of, I don't really, and let me be clear before I start this, I don't want to focus too much. I'm sure it'll come out a few times, but I want to make a point of saying I don't want to focus on Andrew Tate as a person. He is just a guy who made a lot of money giving men what I think is damaging and bad advice. And I care about the substance of what he says. Andrew Tate himself, I don't like the guy, but he's in a jail in Romania right now. Not worried about him. So let's get into it, shall we? Okay. Let me pull this. Yeah, the name of this video is Andrew Tate's Speech Will Change Your Life. Andrew Tate explains how to get rich. So, off the bat, if you clicked on this video, you've already made a mistake. You've made a mistake in searching out advice to develop a meaningful interpersonal relationship with other people and develop a meaningful life, a meaningful, valuable life to yourself, and you've clicked on a video about becoming rich. This is already going to set you up with the expectation, the understanding that being rich is what gives you value. That's untrue. Being rich does not give you value. You give you value. So, off the bat, already.
3 reasons most of you are never going to be rich. 1, you do not identify opportunity. The opportunity we are discussing now, which happened on the 12th of March, where I bought 600 grand of Bitcoin, which is now worth in excess of 7 million. I've done 0 work. 0. I've turned 600K.
So, off the bat, let's look at this. You didn't identify opportunity. Now, the opportunity Andrew Tate is referring to is having $600,000 and investing it. So far, as I kind of had a feeling, and based on the video's name, it's fairly obvious, but the thing that made that the thing that distinguished him as recognizing an opportunity was already having money. If you already have money, you can already recognize opportunity and invest on those opportunities. Meaning, without money, you're fucked. How are you where do you go from here? You're already kind of fucked, right? You're already like, well, shit, I don't have 600K. What am I supposed to do then? I guess I'm just boned, aren't I? And this is, recognize the state, the mindset that this is supposed to get you in the mental environment it's going to put you in. Because it's going to be a negative one. It's going to be one that if you're just living a normal life, guess what? Your life sucks. And, you know, you're going to think I'm cliche with saying this, but your life doesn't suck. But you and I both know it can be better. So let's continue.
Into 7 million just because I identified an opportunity. It took me 10 minutes. You're sitting out there thinking, if I just had $1 million, if I could just become a millionaire. That's how easy it is. Now, you probably didn't have 600K to buy Bitcoin like I did. Fine. You could have put 600 in and had 70 grand. 70.
You could have put $600. Do you pay rent? Do you pay rent? Do you have an apartment? Do you have other bills and such? Are there other things that bring you value? Keep in mind, again, with these videos, at the end of the day, it is the abundance of wealth that gives you opportunity and gives you value with this mindset. You are nothing. You have no ability to seize an opportunity. The opportunity that he poses to you is one of just having money and just spending money, just taking risks. Not to say that, maybe you shouldn't, maybe you should have bought Bitcoin back in the early 2000s, back in the 2010s or whatever it is. But if you didn't, who is this for then? How did you miss out on the boat you were never in the same zip code in?
1,000 you could have had from 600. But you do not identify opportunities. This is the first thing you do not do.
Also, I just want to point this out. I'm not going to harp on this, but I'm pretty sure up on his little corner is his subscription service thing, which when he says identify an opportunity, realize you're the opportunity. If you listen, if you pay for any of this Andrew Tate content, understand you're the opportunity. Just understand that.
You do not pay attention to the world around you. You just live in your little bubble. You're too busy identify opportunities. This is the first thing you do not do. You do not pay attention to the world around you. You just live in your little bubble. You're too busy arguing with your ugly girlfriend, too busy stressed out about some dumb shit, too busy sleeping in. You don't pay attention. You're not perspicacious.
Is that a word? Okay, I don't know if that's a word. But notice, in this scenario, you're paying bills, you're living life, you have a girlfriend. This isn't even for people who don't have girlfriends. This is for people with girlfriends. And some kind of weird assertion that because you don't have money because you're not rich, your girlfriend must necessarily be ugly. Like, imagine that immediate assumption that a poor person. Have you ever seen some rich people? Have you ever seen any of their wives or any of their husbands? Do you notice kind of a trend? Not all the time, but sometimes, where there are celebrities, there are rich people whose spouses look rather normal. Do you want to know why that is? Do you want to know why some of the richest people have very normal looking wives and vice versa? It's because your girlfriend should be meaningful to you regardless of her or your bank account. You must get out of this mindset that having wealth, being rich, seizing opportunity is somehow a credit to you as a person, to your existence on this earth. Take a step back. I've said this before, and I used to live in a very small studio apartment. I lived in a bunk bed with a couch and, you know, some few stuff. I think this bookshelf might have been there too. Unless this is a different one. No, I'm pretty sure I didn't buy a new one. But I used to live in an $800, way overpriced studio apartment. It was small, it was dingy, it was in the basement of my apartment complex. It was, you know, on a fair assessment, I lived in my own small little bubble. And every once in a while, I would think to myself, I'm living in a space where I don't have a bedroom. I didn't even have carpet at the time. You know, the heating wasn't always great. The AC was, since it's only one room, if I have the AC on, blaring the entire place. I can't hear anything. You know, the actual building quality wasn't great. Like, you know, it's an okay building. My bunk left me with about, I don't know, like this much, probably about this right here. I had this much space between like the top. Actually, no, it was probably more like this. I probably had like, you know, maybe not even, probably 2 feet of space between me and the ceiling. That's how squeezed I was in that bed. It was I look back at it now, and there were a lot of issues with it. You know, it's small, you know, it's not really the nicest place in the world. But every once in a while, something that I would do is I would take a step back and I would think about kind of where I was at that time. Was I rich? Fuck no. I wasn't making a lot of money either. But a year before that, I was living in an apartment, a 1-bedroom, mind you. I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment that I had to share with my ex at the time. We had to share an apartment. I was sleeping on the couch because obviously we didn't want to share the same bed. But when she was there, I'd sleep on the couch. I'd sleep a lot throughout the day so that we wouldn't interact. And overall, I was rather depressed. I was going to work and staying at work for hour on hour on hour. I'd make sure that I stayed out of the house because I didn't want to be in the same room, be in the same area. And when she moved out of the city and I had to find a place of my own, I landed on this studio. It was small, like I said. It wasn't ideal. I barely had, you know, if I woke up, I couldn't sit up in my own bed. I had to slide out onto the steps until I got about 3 steps down. Then I could kind of stand. It wasn't the ideal scenario, but I would look back. You take a moment when you can in your life and recognize, even if it's small, even if in the grand scheme it's not big, realize how much you've achieved and how far you've gotten and how much you've made your own. Because I went from sharing a space with somebody who I had a very negative relationship with by the end to having my own space where I had my own stuff, my own TV, my own a closet, you know, all of these little things that aren't big, but they got to be mine. And I got to say I had my own living quarters. And again, like I said, it wasn't huge. But take stock of the progress you've made. And don't get so wrapped up into this, you're not rich, you're not this, you're not that. I was driving a shit car that same year. A year later, I now have a nicer car, a car that's not from the 90s now. You know, has my car had problems? Yeah, I had to replace the brakes. I had to, you know, somebody like caved in part of my bumper. I had to get that fixed. You know, I had to buy battery, tire issues, all sorts of stuff. But take stock of how far you've gotten. You know, instead of this constant need to chase more wealth that, I mean, what? Is it meaningful to you? You know, sometimes, crazy enough, I miss my old studio. I miss my own little apartment. I miss having my own little space. Not because it was materially valuable, but mainly because it was sentimentally valuable. It was a place where I was allowed to live and live very fully, very unobstructed, since it was my own place. And take stock in that stuff. Take more stock of that stuff. Give yourself more credit for the progress you've made and not for the progress you haven't.
This is why you miss opportunities. It's the first reason you're never going to be rich. Second reason you're never going to be rich. Don't buy a house. Rent a house. So like, oh, but isn't that wasting money? No, what's wasting money is buying a house, giving huge interest rates to a bank.
So this is flat bad financial advice, because when you rent a house, you are paying somebody either, well, first of all, you don't know what their mortgage is. So you are paying most likely a majority or a plurality of their mortgage that they will then, at the end of paying that off, sell their home for the full equity. You will end up paying their mortgage and get none of the equity for it. This is bad advice. Any interest rate that you are giving to the bank when you buy a house, you are also giving to the owner of the house when you rent their home. You're like, they're not, nobody who owns a home and then rents it is going to charge you their mortgage without the interest rate that's on that mortgage. If the house is worth $500,000 and you owe $620, and the rent you're asking for and your mortgage is $2,000, I don't know if these numbers are, these specific numbers don't worry about. But if your mortgage is $20,000 or $2,000 each month, and what, I don't know, maybe $1,700 of that is your mortgage, and $300 of that is the interest on your mortgage, you are not going to charge somebody $17. You're going to charge them all $2,000 if you can. So I don't know, like, this is bad financial advice off rip.
And then tying yourself to one geographical location. The reason humans are the #1 species on the planet is because of our adaptability, the ability to adapt. I can go anywhere on Earth. I can go wherever the money is.
So this is a misconception and kind of a misunderstanding of humans' ability to adapt. When people say humans have become successful through adaptation and the ability to move all over the place, we were talking about nomadic people. That's what we were talking about. What Andrew Tate is talking about is constantly traveling around and gallivanting around the world, and quite frankly, paying a lot of money to go spend in hotels, which you're not ever going to get equity from a hotel. I can now let's be clear. If you are someone who would like to travel for a living, if you're like a big traveler person, like you know, you want to do a traveling blog, whatever, maybe you, whatever, that's different, because that would be not just a career, but that's also a That's like there's a format for living nomadically. There's people who live to this day nomadically. But that's not what he's describing. What he's describing is going around the world and just moseying around. Which isn't bad, but certainly is not an alternative and not a good financial alternative to buying a home and garnering the equity from that home. There are people I know who bought homes a couple years ago. They've already built up $100K of equity in that home, like already, just like that, in the span of like a year or 2 years. So this is just spend money. That's what Andrew Tate is telling you. Do not invest your money. Funnily enough, he mentioned investing into Bitcoin. He's telling you actively to not invest your money into one of the safest investments, which is the housing market and the house you live in, and instead just spend it on planes, spend it on hotels, spend it on other stuff. Not saying you can do both. You can own a home and travel. Those are things you can do. But you should not be shirking one for the other unless you have a career objective to do so.
The money resides. If the money's residing in Japan, I can go to Japan. If I need to go to Singapore, I can go to Singapore. I can go live in Las Vegas. Wherever I'm gonna get paid, I can go, and I'll just rent. Boom, boom, boom. I ain't got nothing tying me down. It ain't gonna take years for me to buy or sell something.
Also keep in mind, everything he's saying, also remember, which, you know, I think this is fairly obvious, you are hearing the advice of somebody who already has a lot of money and already spends it frivolously and gambles. What Bitcoin is gambling. You're gambling on the possible future value of any Bitcoin. What he is telling you is to not gamble on yourself, but gamble in general. Just keep throwing money at random things until something sticks. And if you know anything about gambling, that doesn't last very long unless you've got a lot of money saved up. And even then, people who do have a lot of money saved up, it still doesn't last very long.
I ain't gotta worry about all the upkeep and property maintenance.
Also, let's keep in mind that the economy is globalized. You do not need to be in Japan to really invest or have business ties to that country. The world economy is such that people make deals in different time zones. So, it's...
Buying a house is foolish. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I do own this house because I wanted it to be exactly the way I want it, but I'm rich.
I mean, come on. Like, we understand that he told you not to buy a house and then admitted he bought a house because he understands it's a home is the single safest investment that you can make in your life. That is the single safest purchase that you can, investment that you can make. There's a reason why he got it the way he wanted, because that's the advantage of home ownership.
Rich, right? You aren't. So you shouldn't be doing that. Anyway, you do not need to buy a house. It's one of the biggest mistakes
you have a nice night, Skeptic
Wolf. It's a psychological thing that your parents have told you.
Thanks for the compliment, bud.
You own a home. And then I tell people this, and they go, oh yeah, but you can always rent it out. You're gonna spend $300,000 on a house so that you can rent out for $800 a month. And then every time the boiler breaks, you're gonna spend $500 fixing the boiler. And they're gonna damage your house. And by the time they leave, you're gonna need a whole bunch of repairs. And they're gonna be calling you all the time for hassle and stress if they even pay their rent on time. You think that's a good spend of $300 grand? Do you know what else?
So, this is another one of those. This is also why, by the way, you shouldn't be buying houses as speculative assets. If you want to buy a house, or if you want to live somewhere, buy a home. If you want to invest in something, do it in the stock market. Separate your investments, your financial investments and all that sort of stuff. Separate that from your day-to-day assets. Meaning, don't Don't, you wouldn't bet on your car. You wouldn't invest on your car. It's foolish or something. I don't even know how that would work. But don't do that with your home. Make the place where you lay your head down every night yours and yours alone. Now, there are situations where I understand people do rent their houses out for economic reasons. That I understand. But if you can, sleep in the place that you own. Sleep in the place that you own.
You could do with 300 grand, buy Bitcoin. Revolutionary.
So, this is also, understand, when you buy a home, you're not buying cash. Remove that from your mind. Because he just said, understand, he just said buy Bitcoin instead, right? Which, Bitcoin specifically, bad investment, right? We understand that, not a great investment, especially now. Now you can say, oh, well, back in like 2015, maybe if you bought Bitcoin, sure. A okay investment until now when it's kind of crashed in value a lot. But let's talk about right now. Right now, can you go to the bank and ask for a $300,000 loan to buy not just stock, but crypto? Will the bank give you that money? Fuck no. Will the bank give you that to buy a home? Fuck yes. So what he's already talking about is a solution that is not available to you. It's not. The reason why a bank would loan, assuming they do and they wouldn't, I doubt, the only reason a bank would consider loaning to somebody like Andrew Tate $300K to bet on Bitcoin would be because his accumulation of wealth gives them the false security that he will deliver returns. You as an average person, as the averagest, normalest dude out there, you do not have that kind of trust. You are just a normal guy. The return on investment that they think they will get out of you is not what they will get out of Andrew Tate. And that's the bet that they make. And they're open to make that bet. But if you walk into a bank and tell them I want 300 grand and I'm going to put it on Bitcoin, or you don't tell them, you're not getting the money. So already he's giving you a solution that you can't act upon. You can't even use.
Your real estate can be on the blockchain instead of out here. Because when it's on the blockchain, it can be sold instantly. You ever tried to sell a house? It takes years. Ever tried to sell Bitcoin? It takes seconds. So this is the second reason you're never going to be rich. Because all your ideas and concepts of how wealth is created are outdated. 3, the third and most important.
Outdated. This is also the danger. Guys like Andrew Tate and to a degree Jordan Peterson, although I do think Jordan Peterson gives better advice, definitely better advice than Andrew Tate. But you hear this and you think, you might be thinking, oh, well, if I want to be rich, I invest in crypto. And the reason why you're thinking that is because you want something fast. And the reason why Andrew Tate's messaging works so well is because he's giving you a fast, a easy, and a thoughtless way to address your problem of finances or of what's the word I'm looking for? Finances or relationship advice. This is obviously a video more about the economics, which is important. But understand, you've heard before to be worried about people that give you the answer that you want and not the answer that you need to hear. I think everybody here understands that the answers you want to seek out are not always the ones you want to hear. You don't want to hear that it's going to take time to grow a career. You don't want to hear that it's going to take time to, grow your portfolio, to learn a skill. You just want it. You want to be good at it now, and you want to be rich now. You want to, I already forget the first thing I said, but my point being is that you're going to need to swallow the hard pill that it's going to take time. And I know that sucks. And I know that it's an unattractive answer, but there is no get rich quick scheme that will ever work for you, because by the time somebody's explaining it to you, it's already past. By the time somebody is explaining you their get rich scheme, it's already over. Too many people have already tried it, and too many people have made it fail. It's why Bitcoin is where it is today and not where it was 10 years ago. Be weary of people giving you easy solutions.
Important reason you're never going to be rich is because you do not have a plan. You do not have a plan to get rich. Nothing good has ever happened on accident. Have you ever met a guy who's just got covered in muscle, he's got a six-pack? You're like, hey bro, how'd you do that? You've been going to the gym. No man, it was just an accident. Oops. No, he built that body purposefully. He did things specifically to get the result he desired. He ate a specific way. He trained a specific amount.
Now, this is not awful advice. You should have a plan, and you should know clearly what your goal is. That is something that I think people tend to struggle with, is figuring out what it is, what their endpoint is. You need to figure out your endpoint and then do things to work to that endpoint. If that's, being in incredible shape like this guy is, cool, wonderful. You're going to need to learn how to get in that kind of shape, but, it's good that, having plans, this is actually the best advice he's had out of the three of them, mainly because it's vague and it's just have a plan, do things with a purpose, have an end game.
He knew exactly what he was doing. Every rich person knows exactly what they're doing. People who are making money know exactly how to do it.
Now, this is where he lies. Because you've been in a situation where somebody in either the company you work for or maybe somebody at your school who has a lot more money than you, but shockingly, if you've ever talked to them, I'm sure you've had this experience where you are left dumbfounded by the idea that that person is either in charge or in the position that they're in or has the money that they're in. And the reason for that, and one of the key factors that you need to remember when it comes to being rich, two things. One, you are not more valuable if you're rich. Two, at no point does your amount of wealth have any bearing from a correlative or causative perspective on your value, your intelligence, your person. And this is why. You might say, but if I have money, I can buy the things that I think bring me happiness or give me what I see as valuable to my life. Which I can understand that. As somebody who collects records, I understand that. Spending extra money on a better version of Steely Dan's Can't Buy a Thrill does bring me more joy than going out to Target and buying the Target version. I can understand that. But that's a commodity. And the problem that you're running into if you have this mindset is that you don't know how to assess your life in its full entirety, in its whole, separated from your material goods, from your commodities. As much enjoyment as it is for me to buy a expensive copy of a record that I like, I've found more enjoyment by buying and listening to records that I have had a hard time finding, or ones that even aren't hard to find. I have a Django Reinhardt vinyl that I really enjoy. Who that is a inspiration to the. He was a jazz artist from France during the, I believe, 1950s or so, that inspired some of the kind of musical motifs in BioShock, a game that I absolutely love. And as much as I would like a audio files copy of Can't Buy a Thrill, as much as I enjoy that, there's so much more meaning, personal value in my Django Reinhardt record, because I found that through an experience and another piece of media, which made me appreciate a different, like, a musical style, and then searching out and trying to find that specific version in the record with that specific version. Drawing value from commodities is understandable, but you must always be in front of that value assessment. You must be making that assessment, not somebody else. Don't let somebody tell you that a Lamborghini would mean more to you on the basis that it's a Lamborghini. When I got rid of my old busted ass 90s, what was it? I think it was a Lincoln. I felt bad to a degree. And the reason I felt bad is because I've been driving that car since I moved into a new town, and I spent a lot of time with it. It was a busted ass car. It died on me. That was kind of annoying, but when it was time to say goodbye to it, I had attached a lot of value to the freedom it gave me and the opportunities it let me take advantage of. Value needs to come from you, not from your wallet.
You're sitting there saying, I want to be rich. You don't even have a plan to get rich. How the fuck are you going to get rich on accident? How's that going to happen? Oops, I'm a millionaire. Never. One of the...
Okay. We're gonna shift to this one, only really because that one's a lot of economics, which is important and stuff. But I want to switch to what I would, let's see. Yeah, if I remember correctly, this should be more of what I'm interested in the Andrew Tate conversation. Let's go back real quick. So, keep in mind, like I said, the issue I have with Andrew Tate's rhetoric, besides his person, but the issue I have with his rhetoric is go ahead, Skeptic Wolf, hit me with it, is Andrew Tate needs you, the viewer, the person who's a fan of him, to assess your life by his standards, which you should absolutely 100% never do. You should not be looking for somebody else's evaluation of your life that don't, especially if they don't know you. If you don't know that person, compared to MLK Jr., oh my god, cringe. If you are you're a normal kid, you're going through your life like normal, you should be looking toward the people in your life to show you how valuable your life can be. yeah, we'll do something skeptical. We'll do something Monday. I remember you said Monday was good. We'll figure something out. I promise. But the assessment of your life should be based on your boundaries and on your boundaries and on your grounds, not on somebody else's. That should be the number one thing. So all that aside though, let's get into the let's get into whatever this one is.
If you're in a trench and you're under fire, the least productive person is the person who goes, they've got too much artillery, we're gonna die. Shut the fuck up. We all know. Shut up. That's not helping us, right? It's very infectious. So, and most people understand, they say, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Yeah. Then why the fuck are you spending time with negative people? Or people who complain? Or unhappy people? Or unlucky people? Or negative people? Stop talking to them. Everyone I talk to is like, yep, we are winners. All we do is fucking win. Oh, the Matrix attacks us. Oh, you think I need YouTube? You think I need YouTube? Get fucked. That's who we are, right?
So, there is a kernel of truth in this, in the sense that there are going to be people in your life that are negative, that do dwell in negativity. Not to say that you should excise these people and you should not engage with these people, but he is right in terms of the fact that you in your head need to get out of negative spaces. And you need to begin to approach the world from a positive perspective. Now, the problem is what Andrew Tate is communicating is a resentment of other negative people. And what resentment does to you from a mental standpoint is makes you hostile to others, makes you angry with others. Do you notice that he is mad? He's upset. He's angry. This guy, as much as he wants to talk about being positive, is he positive about those people? He's not. He's what we would call in my neighborhood, where I grew up in the streets, an asshole who surrounds himself with people who vapidly say LARP as positive individuals. There's a difference between positive, if you've ever heard the term, there's a term positive and negative freedom. What positive and negative freedom as terms try to communicate is the differentiation between freedom, which is good and brings positive outcomes for everybody around you, or at the very least, the most amount of people, and negative freedoms. Negative freedoms are freedoms that produce harm. Freedoms that create not just an antipathy in you towards others, but an antagonism within society. And what Andrew Tate is talking about, and the type of people he's talking about, I would say are, I don't know if there's a term or if this is a term, but they are positively negative people, or negatively positive people, maybe is more appropriate. These are people who are not positive and are not happy. These are people who affect what they think is supposed to be happiness as a way to function and to affect success. That's not what you want. What you want is genuine happiness and genuine positivity. You can do this very easily, actually. You do not need to leave your negative friends behind. You do not need to resentfully lash out at them. Here's what you need to do. If you are in a situation where your friends are being negative, be honest, be open. tell them, look, you guys are being really, really negative. You guys are actively choosing to dislike things, to define yourselves by the things you dislike and by the things that bring you frustration, pain, resentment, regret, any of these things. And you need to make it clear that that's not the life you want to continue to live. And unless you think it's the life they want to live, you should express to them, if they're important to you, that you would like them to also get out of that negative space. Everybody should want the best for everybody else. I want the best for everybody. But the best doesn't always mean everyone's always going to be happy. But the best can produce the ability for everybody to be happy. It's equality of opportunity, not outcome. You do not want to surround yourself with people who are pretending, who are affecting positivity. You want people who are actually positive, people who enjoy their lives. And you won't start that. You won't be able to grow that for yourself if it doesn't come from a positive place.
So this was when I was young. I was about 23 years old. I had a new girlfriend. Her name was Carrie. And her ex-boyfriend, I stole her from her ex-boyfriend. And if you're a man, you
the fuck just
understand that no woman's truly single. You're always...
Sorry,
I had a new girlfriend. Her name was Carrie. And her ex-boyfriend, I stole her from her ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
And if you're...
So, already, what this is should be a red flag to you. Not because his this girl left or cheated, or it seems like they didn't cheat, but left this other man for Andrew Tate. The thing that should give you a red flag is the verb of steal. You as a person should not be looking to steal anything from anybody. That should be a fundamental kind of understanding. It's not healthy to go around and see the world as transactional, as people as items to manifest, or I guess not manifest, to what's the word I'm looking for? To exercise your ego or your masculinity, or your machismo, I guess. Not even masculinity, just machismo. You don't want to go about your life going after others. You want to gain value to your life through your being, not through other people's property, relationships, whatever it might be. These are negative groundings for somebody not even being successful, but living happily.
If you're a man, you understand that no woman's truly single. You're always stealing her from some other guy, or she's still half talking to her. Oh, bro, she's half talking to her.
This is just plain insecurity. This is plain insecurity. Andrew Tate says this, hoping that you focus on the fact that he stole, right? When what he is actually demonstrating is pain and is hurt. Because deep down, Andrew Tate doesn't trust anybody. Do you want to be that? Do you want to distrust people who you put your time into? Does that seem healthy?
To her ex, or she's dating 10 guys, are always out competing other men, right? So stole her from some dude got heartbroken, had no emotional control, like all the things we talked about. I was at her house, my car was outside her house, I was with my boy, Tony, my ex-friend. Me and Tony are in her house. She's talking to her friend. I'm talking with Carrie. We're all having fun. It's Friday night. 4 cars pull up. Boom, 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 boom. These 6 guys get out with hammers. Knock on the door. It's her ex-boyfriend. Carrie starts panicking. He's crazy. He's crazy. I was like, listen, relax. I go outside with Tony. There's 6 guys with hammers. It's me and Tony, right? And he goes, bro, I don't even give a fuck about.
Okay, we're going to stop this for 1 second. I really hope he tries to give me some story where he John Wicked everybody. Because that would be hilarious.
Harry, but you're going to say sorry to me. I said, sorry for what? Because you stole my girl, you're going to say sorry. And then we'll just go away. I said, I'm not going to lie to you, my friend. I'm not sorry for fucking anything. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm sorry.
So what he's actually describing is that individual, that man, and like we're going to stipulate that this wasn't a scenario that he was cheated on. If the scenario is true that she went from dating one guy and then dated Andrew Tate, that male, that guy who showed up with 6 people with hammers, that guy was insecure. That guy was insecure, was an insecure man with an inability to look inward after a relationship. And Andrew Tate, obviously, I mean, is this story true? I really, really, really highly doubt it. But, you know, this is insecurity. And what he's describing, the story he's telling, is all it is insecure men interacting with other insecure men. That's all we're hearing right now.
And then my friend Tony next to me, and when I said that, I swear to God, when I said that in real time, because I don't take my eyes off the enemy, right? There's 6 of them, but they're all facing me directly. So I was looking in their eyes directly. When I said that, I saw all of their eyes go, shit. You ain't gonna say sorry. So now we have to actually attack him with hammers. Do we actually want to attack him? At the time, I was British kickboxing champion. I was known in my town. They knew it was gonna be messy, right? And I had one hand behind my back as well. I had nothing.
Yes, because kickboxing will totally work against somebody with a hammer. Gotcha.
I had nothing in it.
Who knows what's back there?
You had to do something, right? So they're looking at me and they're like, fuck's sake. We thought he'd say sorry and he didn't. Now what do we do? And Tony pipes up. Fucking dickhead Tony. Hey, man, why don't you just say sorry? And as he said that, I saw all of their faces almost lit up. Because he inspired, the other team showed weakness, inspired weakness on our side. And from complete capitulation, they were now brave again. Because Tony ran his mouth. I swear on my father's grave, I'm standing there. Tony said that. I turned, I fucking smacked him, strained his mouth, knocked him out cold.
Tony, don't.
Tony, my own friend.
Insecurity. Once again. What this is insecurity. Now, again, I don't really think this story is true, but we'll stipulate for now. Was his friend playing a positive role in this scenario? Yes. De-escalation. You see, Andrew Tate will tell you that de-escalation is weakness, that every interaction is a battle, is a battlefield between you and every other man. But it's not. And it's also not a way that you should be going about any interactions with not just anybody, but your friends. Because you see, what this story is at the end of the day telling you is you need to have friends around you who either don't question you and don't challenge you, or you need to have people around you, friends around you, who you control. The loss of control is the thing that Andrew Tate is actually talking about. The thing that he is actually concerned with is control. And you'll learn really quickly that you can't control everybody. You can't control most things. And it's scary. It's scary to think of how little control you have over so many aspects of your life, right? It's not fun. It's not fun being out of control of so many things. It's not fun being out of control of your wage, so you're, you know, meaning that you're out of control of your ability to maybe take a nice girl out. Can you date if you don't make enough money? Nope. I guess if you don't make enough money, then you can't do that. But you can't control that. You can't just simply make more. You've got to work. Well, you know, you can work harder. You might get rewarded by that, but you might not. You could move jobs, but same scenario. You might make more, you might make less. You might find that the job market isn't going to go your way. Control is the thing that Andrew Tate is terrified of losing, and it's what he wants you to be terrified of also losing. What he is, and this is the convenient part for him, he's selling you control. He's selling you fake control with his platform, with his little subscription thing. He's selling you the illusion of control, because the truth that control is out of your hands for many things is too scary. And I get it. I absolutely get it. But the first step to understanding control is to understand that you can't control everything, but you can control yourself, and you can control some things, and learning to recognize what you can and cannot, and making the most impact you can from understanding that. That's also incredibly important. Something that Andrew here isn't really concerned with. He is concerned with grasping onto every single thing he can. If he can control the women in his life, he's happy. If he can control the friends that he has, he's happy. It's small. Andrew Tate, at the end of the day, reveals himself to be a small person.
My own teammate against the six. I knocked him out cold.
I don't need you now, Tony.
I knocked him out. I said, fuck him and fuck you. I'm in the house. And I walked in the house, and I saw them all stand around outside with hammers, look at Tony asleep, and go back in the cars and walk off. Swear to God, that's a true story. If you're weak near me, you make me weak. I refuse to accept it. I give you a million stories of this. 2 years ago, maybe, we were in Munich. They called the police on me for not wearing a mask. That's a whole nother story. I told them to get fucked as well. We're in Munich. Wasn't wearing a mask, blah, blah, blah. We got drunk in the Kapinski, got really drunk, blah, blah, blah. I was drinking with some guys I kind of knew. In the morning, the police had come. They were threatening to arrest us all because we didn't fucking capitulate and we're 8 masks.
Man, he probably knows what this feels like, but like fully this time. This time they were like, nope, you're just coming with us.
The Germans are weird. So we got in our cars, got in our we had two Raris, got in the Raris, we're heading back to Bucharest. We drunk loads. We were really, really drunk. We stopped at the gas station. We all got out of the car. One of the guys was like, bro, I feel so sick. Oh, man.
Also, what is this accent?
Walked to the gas station. I said, and I went up to him. My brother talks about this all the time. He goes, and I pat him on the back and said, bro, if you're going to keep walking like a fucking injured antelope, you're going to stay here. We drunk booze. We all feel like shit. I'm not walking around Earth with some dude. I don't want you in my group. I don't want you getting in my car. I don't want you near me. When I walk with my team, you look and go, let's choose someone else. Let's choose another group.
So, I don't need to see the rest of this. I think we all kind of get the gist of this. What Andrew Tate is mostly talking about here is hey, I didn't mean to click that. Is a desire to appear at all times as strong, as, you know, the strong, the leader, the, you know, the ultra masculine man. He wants to be like, you know, the front man of any group that he's in. Do you know how tiring that is? Honestly, do you know how tiring it is to constantly when you go out in public, feel the need to be the loudest, be the funniest, be the fastest, be the strongest, be the whatever. Do you know how tiring that is? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But let me tell you something. You will end up finding that when you enter into group dynamics with friends, with mutual friends, with acquaintances, with anybody like that, you're going to find that while you're trying to outpace every other male in your vicinity, to be the funniest, to be this, to be the one who drinks the most, be the one who talks the loud, whatever that might be. While you're doing all of this, you know where your mind isn't? Your mind isn't talking to maybe a attractive woman that you met at the bar. Your mind isn't hanging out with your friends and having a good time, having fun. Being able to tell a story that you can look back on and remember the good times. Because the thing you're going to be focused on is waiting for your next moment to speak and waiting on your next moment to peacock of it, essentially. You need to look at other people not as measuring sticks, not as jumping off points, not as templates for, you know, how to act or benchmarks to try to pass. The only thing you should really be worried about, if you're going out with your friends or anything like that, is having a good time. Because there is nothing more unattractive, and I mean this, there is nothing more unattractive than being in a group of people at like a bar setting or hanging out and being the person who always has to be at the center of attention, who always wants the eyes to be on them. There's nothing more unattractive than that. And there are people who like being the centers of attention. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is you always trying to outpace your friend next to you. Not because you like it, not because you like the attention or you like being entertaining, but because you think that you're more valuable if you're funnier than your friend. And, you know, I said earlier that this is kind of a goal of mine, to make this not a platform necessarily, but take more time out to talk about this stuff. But this is one of the aspects. You need to start approaching your relationships with friends and romantic partners with less of a objective, transactional mind. You need to be able to enjoy being around your friends even when you're not doing well. Because you're not always going to be things aren't always going to be going your way. Sometimes things will suck. But you do not want to be in a position where, your life's going okay, but, if you can just be funnier than your friend, you can grasp onto that one little thing. Don't be selfish like that. And don't use your friends like that. It's not only is it not appropriate It's not going to help you, because the minute they're gone, the minute you head home, you don't have anybody to compete against. Now it's just you. And you're going to feel that emptiness when you get home and you have nobody to measure yourself against. Which is why you should always be who you're measuring yourself against. Not your friends, not people like Andrew Tate, not professional athletes, not celebrities, not rich, I don't know, fucking crypto bros. Not any of these people. You are the benchmark for you. Because that's the only one that you're going to actually live with. It's the only one. Okay. I think that's it for tonight. Yeah. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah. We are officially 1 week down from for the new year. Yeah. We'll be back. I say we all the time. It's just a habit. Yeah. Monday, 7 o'clock, Tuesday, 7 o'clock, Thursday, 7 o'clock Mountain Time, is when you can catch this stream. If you enjoyed, if you enjoyed watching any of this, if you gleamed anything from it, if, any of this kind of you found helpful, I encourage you to hit that follow button. We'll be kind of sticking with this topic, I think, throughout the year, or at least until I think that we've made some kind of impact here. But yeah, as always, I am, I'm happy to always be here. If you're catching this maybe on a replay, you might be watching it on YouTube, something. If you if you somehow made it to this point, especially if you're watching the VOD, to anybody, there is a link above my head. Well, actually, it's not a link; it's an email address. At any point, feel free to email me and set up a time that you would like to talk. Just let me know what you kind of want to talk about. I'm always open to conversations, especially if you are one of these Andrew Tate folks. If he is somebody that you are inspired by, enthralled by, I would love to hear from you. I find at the end of the day, whether I agree with Andrew Tate's prescriptions, I agree with him in the sense that there is a problem and there is something we should be doing to address it. I just don't think he's really the person who's giving out the best or really most valuable advice out there. Certainly the best marketed advice, but that doesn't really mean much in my book. But either way, yeah, if you're one of those fans, I'd be more than happy to host you on here. We have a nice conversation. I want to know what you're going through and where your headspace is at. Because I can respond to Andrew Tate, and I'm going to continue to doing so, and any other of these kind of self-help guys, any of those other people, throughout the year. Like I said, I want to make this kind of a place where we can have this conversation. But other than that, like I said, Monday will be the next episode. Don't think I have any programming notes other than that. I'm pretty sure that's it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Anyway, thank you for watching. You've been a great audience. I've been drinking Thai tea. And you all have yourselves a lovely night, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.